When I was 25 years old, I walked inside the room and he was the instructor. He was tall and black. Broad Street, spring of 1987. I stayed at this hotel last year and realized it was the same block as where the Kung Fu school used to be. There were like 40 kids in that room. They ran in a circle. They ran laps at the Kung Fu school. The movies would have you believe 40 black kids could not be quiet, but you could hear a pin drop. I signed up for lessons, but I stopped showing up for class. Then I moved without telling anyone. I wrote him, and he answered my letter. We were happy to receive your recent letter to the temple, he said, but not happy that you say you're no longer exercising. Don't say that. Please continue to do our exercise program. The aura of a person who works out and doesn't do drugs is much stronger than the average individual. Discipline will strengthen you mentally and spiritually. It will draw people to you. Your boss will treat you with more respect. It will keep your figure beautiful and the men chasing after you. I work out 7 days a week, he said. I am a fanatic when it comes to Kung Fu Wushu. I recently graduated from the New Jersey Institute of Technology, he said. I am an electrical engineer by profession. I have sent out resumes, but have gotten turned down because I have no experience. Hopefully, I will get my foot in the door. He signed a letter and put his home address at the bottom in case I wanted to write back at his home. But I didn't write back, though. He was too good. He was too gentle. He was strong, thoughtful, hardworking, and available. He was too good for me. I put him up on a pedestal. He would protect me. He would love me. He would respect me. He was too good. I had not been to therapy. I wanted drama. I wanted heartache. I wanted struggle. And mostly, I wanted to cry. I was more afraid of the girls than the boys. There were 8 children in the ED class. Elementary school, special education, emotionally disturbed. The boys were silly, but they wouldn't confront you. The girls would challenge you, like, oh yeah? I had to go in there tough. 3 of the ED girls were the most vocal. One said, I'm going to get my grandmother on you. I said, your grandmother? Why not your mother? She wasn't expecting that reply. She was speechless. During lunch hour, one of the teachers told me her grandmother is probably the same age as you. I was in my early 30s. When you looked into the background of these students, it was sad. These are children who had been raped, abused, beaten. When I was leaving for the day, the 3 confrontational ED girls were standing around my car. How was I going to handle these 3? I had to go street on them. Get the hell away from my car, I said. Don't be playing with me. They looked. Then they ran off. I sat there a minute to gather myself before I turned on the car engine. I had to show I couldn't be intimidated. When you're a substitute teacher, you can't take no mess. Ever since she was 9 years old, my cousin was responsible for raising her brother. Her mother was there, but her mother had spells. Her mother would stay in bed. Her mother would say things. And their father was out working. My cousin woke her brother up for school, got him dressed, and made sure he had his cornflakes and eggs. If something happened with his teacher, she went up to the school to find out about it. When she was 15, people started teasing her, saying, that's your son, don't lie. But people said it so often that even her brother started to believe that his sister was his mother. By the time my cousin was 18, she could drive the family car. One time, she was in the car with her mother and brother, and her mother had a spell. Her mother grabbed the steering wheel of the car from the passenger side, and they almost crashed the car. Fortunately, my cousin was able to fight off her mom and regain control of the car. My cousin helped out her brother even after he came back from Vietnam. He got drafted right out of high school. He came back with some issues, Agent Orange, combat memories, nightmares. He needed his sister, and she was there for him. He was the catcher for the varsity baseball team. I was in the colonnade when my mother called me. She said something happened to Jason. He went to St. Benedict's, and he was 17 years old. He was an honor student and just got into West Point. He was supposed to graduate in 1 week. Jason loved the sports page and kept a book of stats. The night before he passed, he read his West Point handbook for cadets. The medical examiner said it was lightning. The phone company said there's no evidence of a strike in the wiring. Jason wasn't sick. He passed his physical for West Point. He didn't drink and he was not messing with drugs. I handed the phone back to my father, then I fell to the floor. I had just graduated from college, and Jason was supposed to start. No matter what Bible verse you told me, I couldn't be told it was right. He was my play cousin, adopted son of my mother's friend. I saw him grow up. I knew him as a little kid. Jason liked Africa, Bambata, and Rum DMC. He liked apple dumplings and vanilla ice cream. Jason's bio father told him about the Army Corps of Engineers. Jason liked engineering and took a summer course. Jason broke up with his girlfriend. Then she got pregnant by another guy. Jason took her back and loved her and the baby too. The girl gave a statement to the police. She said she didn't hear anything when Jason stopped speaking. It was just another phone conversation like they usually had. But then it ended in silence, and she heard nothing but a gasp. I was staying at the Marriott, and I heard somebody talking over a microphone when I was in my room. So I went downstairs and walked a couple of blocks. And it turned out to be Dr. Umar. I was kind of shocked. I didn't know it was going to be somebody famous like that I recognized their name. Anyway, that place is located just down the street from where my uncle used to work. He worked at the First National Bank in 1967 during the Riot. He was in charge of check processing. Once the riot started, none of the white employees wanted to come to downtown New York, so the management asked him to be the supervisor of the whole bank. There was no bus service, so he had to walk to work past the National Guard with their bayonets and their helmets and tanks. Nobody was killed, my uncle said, until they brought in the National Guard. Dr. Umar said some good things about education, monitoring good children's evaluations and progress. He said he was going to open his school very soon. I don't know, Dr. Umar, are you opening your school soon? We got married when we were both 23. He wanted to be a horn player, but he didn't practice, so he never got good enough to be a horn player. He dressed sharp. He was cool. He was like a second Frank Sinatra. His father ran the neon sign company that lit up the signs on Broadway. He kept changing jobs. During our marriage, he had like 12 jobs. My husband was interested in Eastern philosophies. He also changed his first name at the advice of a spiritual guru. He was never loud. He was laid back. But he was not driven. He was a spoiled firstborn. I got pregnant by our first anniversary. I started to feel resentment. When was he going to grow up? He didn't help me enough with the baby. He always got good jobs, but he didn't stay. He got a job in the mailroom of Norman, Craig & Cummel, a big advertising agency in New York. And people liked him. He didn't get home on time on Friday night for me to leave for my answering service job. I worked at an answering service 5 p.m. to midnight, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I wrote down the information when people called. We answered the lines for celebrities. When they weren't home to answer their phone, we took down the calls. I was going to file for divorce, but I had to find a good job first. I didn't want to be a struggling black mother. My sister told me about a job in Harrison. You had to pass a test to get this job. I caught the PATH train to Harrison. I was nervous. I had to complete the test for hand-eye coordination. Well, I tested so high, they let me start right away. I had to be to work at 7 a.m. My job was to test 6 BC8 light bulbs, the tubes that go inside the RCA television sets. Every morning in Harrison, between 6 a.m. and 7 a.m., a huge number of women came by bus to work in Harrison. We all wore girdles. The Playtex factory was in Harrison too. When I got my first paycheck from RCA, I couldn't believe my eyes. I didn't have a college degree, but I made more money than teachers that had a college degree. Teachers made like $50 or $60 a week. I made $167 per week. In the 1950s, that was a lot of money. Teachers were leaving their teaching jobs to come work at RCA. RCA was high technology. Working in Harrison was like working in Silicon Valley. There was a secret building at RCA on the plant. It was manned by armed guards. That was a clean building for color television technology development. No one had a color TV in those days. Nobody that I knew. We had black and white television sets. Well, I filed for divorce. When we divorced, there was no hard feelings. It was an easy process. We went straight from I love you to goodbye. To celebrate, I took my baby to Bloomingdale's. We didn't buy much. We mainly went to look. I wanted her to see high fashion. I wanted to show her that she belongs. I wanted to show her that we deserve the good life. New Jersey was the last northern state to abolish slavery. There was slavery in New Jersey from the 1600s to the 1800s. Slavery was abolished in New Jersey in 1804, but it was not immediate. It was phased out gradually. If you were born to a slave mother, you had to do a mandatory apprenticeship for the former master. They just could not bear to let us go. A quick expungement of our presence from their workplaces would have been too painful. So they stretched it out. Then after they let us go, and we were free, then they called us lazy.